Hello, everybody. What a crazy one, huh? I'm an associate member of T3 Trading Group, which is an SEC registered broker dealer and member of FINRA SIPC. All of my trades are placed through T3 Trading Group. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your own financial condition. My position disclosure is the same as it was yesterday, but the position sizes are different. Position management. All right, all right. Yeah, so pretty crazy one today, especially with what happened into the close with Trump's latest tweet, really all over the place. But let's try to unpack it here. Spies are down 0.25%, but that includes what we're down after hours, so it's less than that. So actually a relatively flat-ish close for the spies compared to what we've seen the last couple of days. So realized volatility technically is coming down a little bit today, even though the intraday movements from this market were something to behold. The Qs here down 0.75%, again, including a little bit of a drop off after hours. The IWM is up 1.3%, and that also includes a little bit of a drop off after hours. TLT small green. The dollar went green to red, so dollar closed down a little bit. Gold continues its insane move to the upside. Bitcoin, the digital gold, not so good, well off of its lows from the day, but not so good, off 3%. Ethereum down 4%, also well off of its lows, not that great. Solana down 4%, oil down 2%. Oil's been getting absolutely riggedy wrecked. Um, I don't know why. I just did a Rick and Morty right there. It just shows you where my head's at. It's been quite the day. All right. So, I mean, look, all over the place. I feel like I traded multiple days in one day. I traded a boatload of volume today, which is great. Love that. Just a lot of movement. So we had a large gap down this morning, just to kind of review here. Um, Jeff Bezos selling more Amazon. Klonovich says RGTI and OKLO, the most bizarre stocks I ever saw, and a bunch similar to these two themes. Most will go to zero after rally, but timing of that is uncertain. Coming from Marco Klonovich, RGTI not taking a penny off of that, but we can circle back to that in a second. Anyway, here. Um, we'll figure out those comments, right? So we had a very long lockdown this morning, and that was off language that was coming out of China, relating to them kind of going after like some shipping companies or whatever that I think are U.S. affiliated, but out of South Korea. But bottom line is it represented a little bit of a further escalation from the Chinese side on our trade war that's been heating up a little bit. And unlike the United States side, which is known for its tacoing, the China side is not something that I think you could be as confident on with that, to be completely honest. But the market seems to disagree because while we gapped down big and we sold off hard for 15 minutes, we V bottomed, filled the cap, and went green. We were, I don't know what percentage we were down at lows, but it was well over a percentage point. And the IWM move, especially Russell, I don't remember what that was down at lows, but it was over a percentage point for sure. Closed up on the day, 1.1% or so. Um, I mean, the IWM daily candle is something special. Fully now has negated Friday's move and it closed above it, closed well above it, and actually gave us an all-time high close today for the Russell. So it was a hell of a day. The spies at Lowe's today were once again. I keep talking about the importance of the area, basically between Friday's low and SPX 6500. Friday's low and SPX 6500, and technically the Goldman Sachs sell triggers a little bit above Friday's low, and we briefly ticked beneath it into our opening down move, but then we were immediately back up. So we basically held Friday's low exactly as bulls need to hold it. Down there, what kind of extension do we have down there out of curiosity? Yeah, extreme extension from the ADMA at today's low, at Friday's low still. It's $11 of extension off the ADMA. So them trying to defend that area, I think makes a lot of sense. It's a really important zone. Um, but I couldn't help but get a little bit excited, when we were seeing the selling in the beginning of the day. I know that this opening selling cannot be sustained, right? And this is why we have our rules for gaps, and this is why we love gaps, right? Gaps give us as traders, I think, a really strong tradable advantage. So you get the large gap down this morning, and basically the game plan when we get these large gaps, it's almost always fairly similar. It is let's see how basically the market handles a small time frame extension that comes from the gap, and sometimes you can look for cute counter trend trades to satisfy that extension off of an opening low that happens on the first 5 minute bar, or off of a low that happens if you get sometimes you get continuation in the direction of the gap as some kind of momentum from people who are trapped. Basically, if it's a downside gap, it's people that are longs that are trapped. If it's an upside gap, it's some shorts that are trapped. So today we had this large downside gap, and I think that it probably put some longs who were buying back yesterday trapped, and it led to kind of a aggressive 15 minutes or so worth of selling to the downside. But this is the type of selling that can't really last. Or I should say it's very, very rare when you get like a pure on extension gap that just has a gap and go that just continues and continues and continues. Almost always, if you get that panic selling like we got in the beginning of the day, you're gonna get a pivot low somewhere, oftentimes the third 5 minute bar, but really anywhere from that like 9:40 a.m. 5 minute bar through like a 10 a.m. 5 minute bar is very typical where you're going to get a low. And that's usually like a great spot, actually, again, for like a shorter term counter trend trade. So I called out a long down there. I'm pretty sure Tate called out a long down there as well. I bought SPX pretty much at the low. Granted, I was out of it really quickly. I just kind of took it as a scalp because my thought process, seeing where we gapped to, seeing that we had news that was coming out of China, and seeing the degree of the opening selling, my thought process was yes, we're gonna bounce back because extension, like this is just how markets work. And yes, there's probably a good long trade here, and that's why I bought it to make a few dollars on the bounce back. But really, my expectation was that we were going to get a lower high, the ADMA was going to catch up to it, and we were going to retest those lows um, and potentially break those lows. And that's not what happened at all. So the long worked great. I liquidated the position really quickly. The market overshot into that ADMA on the 5 minute. The Qs got into that ADMA on the 5 minute. The IWM was immediately showing relative strength. The Russell did not have the opening fear trade to the downside. ASPI offering. Just take a quick look at this ASPI. It's one of the crazy ones. Yeah, ASPI closed around 14. So it looks like it's down a buck on its offering. Um, so anyway, the IWM showed relative strength immediately. There was no opening panic selling in the IWM like there was in the spies and the Qs, and into the bounce back, it was by far and away what was strongest and what was the leader. I was really curious with the Qs were tracking relatively weak if we could get this pivot on this first test of the ADMA, which would be a sign of a very weak market. Oftentimes you need a little bit deeper of a correction than that, but on a very weak market, it's just to the ADMA, or even better, which we definitely didn't get, would have been a more shallow bounce, maybe to like 593, and then some sideways choppier action. The ADMA catches up, and then you continue lower to break lows. So that would have been even more ideal. But it's like, all right, we're in here. Let's look. Let's see what happens. Can we get a pivot? I know I tried to then short here. I got out of the SPXL long that I had. I tried to flip short. And honestly, we barely paused. It was like a brief 5 minute pause in the first touch of the ADMA for the spies and the Qs. And then we broke higher and I got stopped out. I ended up trying that SPXL short like 4 or 5 times. I think maybe two of them I was able to kind of get risk covered Three of them were outright failures, and I ended up actually net negative in SPXL, even with basically buying the low of the day in it, just because I kept going back to the well and trying those shorts a few times. I was trying them again when we got into like SPY 660, and really just couldn't get any degree of a pullback, and just got stopped out again. And I got stopped out again. And then when we broke higher here at 1140, I was just 100% done with this trade. The market was just too strong. I mean, you can see it in the 5 minute chart of the spies. We were incredibly strong. This bid came in and did not go away. And I'll be honest, at this point, I don't even know where this bid is coming from. We read that Morgan Stanley note this morning. The Morgan Stanley note basically said, in a little bit more of a bullish manner, I guess, exactly what I said in yesterday's afternoon meeting, which is we are at a point here where we're getting some degree of systematic selling. And there's a great chart that showed an update that we had in the VTF this morning from Bill, showed an update on the systematic positioning. And you can see that the vol control funds actually sold a lot, whereas the CTAs haven't sold anything yet. And that's because those CTA triggers are basically, again, sitting around Friday's low. We slightly triggered it with the Goldman Sachs trigger. So, Goldman is expecting us to be able to be like a $6 billion seller in the S&P in a flat tape over the course of 1 week. But again, that's as of like Friday's close. And it's only a $1.2 billion seller from the CTAs into an uptape. And this has been an uptape. So I don't know if it's as little as the 1.2 because that would imply, I don't know, a standard deviation or something like that. Move to the upside in order for it to go from 6 billion to 1.2. There's a good chance that it's somewhere in the middle between 6 and 1.2. But the bottom line is that CTA selling that we're actually seeing from Goldman for the week in a up tape is basically non-existent. In the flat tape, it's still relatively light, but there's a ton of risk still, a ton of positioning risk still to the downside. So with where we're trading above Friday's high, when we're above that CTA trigger, you're not seeing any selling there. The question is, we know that there's selling coming in from vol control. Into a 1% down move today, it'd be like $7 billion. The question is it enough to overwhelm the retail buying? That's what I said in yesterday's afternoon meeting, and then that's exactly what the Morgan Stanley note confirmed this morning, is that retail is still buying massively. I don't remember the exact statistics, but I think last week or Friday was like still one of the largest call buying that has ever come from retail. I've seen chatter, it was in the Morgan Stanley note, and I've seen it somewhere else also, that retail buying tends to have 6 week cycles. I don't necessarily trust that data because I think when you get into a mania, and we're in a mania right now, that you probably get more than 6 weeks. But the Morgan Stanley note said that the retail buying tends to last on average for 6 weeks, and we're actually in week 7 right now. So the real question coming into today's trading session was, we know that we're going to be getting some selling from vol control, no selling from CTAs. Is the selling from vol control enough to overwhelm the buying that's to some degree coming from positive gamma? But that could be overwhelmed a little bit from ETF rebalancing. But basically, can the vol control for selling overwhelm the buying that's coming from retail? And then you've got the hedge funds and the institutionals is like a little bit of I think an X factor. They could be buyers here and covering shorts into the down move because they're not very big to the long side, or they do have some exposure that they could be unwinding. So a little bit of an X factor, and we got the answer today. Without a doubt, we got the answer, and the answer was that retail was absolutely able to overwhelm any selling that was a hangover from vol control, and to an incredible degree. Honestly, this upside strength from this move from the pivot low at 9:45 a.m. to the pivot high at 12:50 is incredible. To get that big of a move, SPY basically 653 down really large to SPY green and above yesterday's high at 656 and change, sorry, 665 and change, a $12.50 upside move in the SPYs without a pullback along the way is incredible. One quick pause here at 10:05, one consolidation that lasted for like 45 minutes, but this consolidation was bullish. You could see that they tried to push this market down here a couple times, and they just ran into so much buying that they couldn't do it. Finally, you had some extension on the 5 minute 1150 that sold down for 15 minutes, not in a major way, that created the next pivot low that then led to next highs. And that was it. And then we digested the entire rest of the day, and it looked like we were going to close at or above yesterday's high until we got the tweet from China, sorry, from Trump, that we're going to stop buying China's cooking oil or something. That sold us back down a little bit and shook things back up a little bit. So when you circle back to the daily chart of the indexes here, we said yesterday in yesterday's afternoon meeting that the inside day is actually a really good thing that we had the inside day on Monday, because it gives us some perspective. You have a little bit of a tightening up after such a massive day on Friday in terms of the intraday range. Gives us range. It gives us some perspective. And if we can get an inside and up, things are going to be looking really bullish again. If we get an inside and down, then we're probably going to be working towards a test of Friday's low. Now, what I couldn't have predicted when I was doing the afternoon meeting yesterday was that we were going to get a headline out of China that would actually gap us down big enough to be able to test Friday's low pretty much right at the open. But a gap down below the inside day, I can tell you, is not enough. And this is also how daily inside days kind of work, which I didn't discuss yesterday. But if you gap above or below an inside day, that's not enough. You need to gap and hold. And that's why I liked, by the way, as an initial trade today, to start after equilibrium catches up, not short in the beginning of the day, but short after equilibrium on the 5 minute catches up versus yesterday's low. And if we get above yesterday's low, what I said in the morning meeting was, the bearishness of the potential continuation from this news is shot. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. So you gap below the inside day low, but you immediately retook it. So that's not an inside and down. And then you broke above the high. So it's looking like an inside and up. But then you had the news come out into the close that brought us all the way back down and actually had us close, with the SPYs at least, within yesterday's range. So at the end of the day here, just looking at the SPYs, we'll take a look at the Qs and the IWM in a second. Just looking at the SPYs, I have no additional new clarity today in today's afternoon meeting on the next step of this market compared to yesterday's, outside of the fact that we know that this is a battle right now between the unrelenting retail bid versus the systematic buying. The systematic selling. And the retail bid is the winner. And you kind of have to expect that to continue until it proves itself otherwise. And where you can really see that the retail bid is still the winner is if you look at any of the meme stocks right now, which we also can look at in a second. But before I look at any individual names, let's see if the Qs or the IWM are giving us a little bit of a different picture. The Qs, for the most part, are not. You can see the relative weakness compared to the SPYs, and they did close more like at yesterday's low or just above yesterday's low. So okay, maybe we have something there, but I would say it's still a little bit inconclusive. And we only closed as weak as we did because we even got that tweet, and every tweet recently is getting brought back up. So I would say that the Qs, when I look at that, it's still inconclusive. And then you look at the IWM, and I think that the IWM is more representative in some ways of that retail bid. I'm not sure. I mentioned this into the VTF, and no one responded, so I assume no one else knows on the team here either. I'm not sure, we got an all-time high close in the IWM, but we did not get anywhere near an all-time high close in the KRE. Energy stocks are relatively weak also. So I'm not really sure what the components are of the IWM that actually enabled the new all-time high to come in. I pondered maybe some of these crazy meme stocks are actually IWM components, and it's just the meme mania in and of itself that brought this IWM to new all-time highs. But While the spies and the Qs are completely not conclusive, the IWM here is telling us bull, 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 bull. Uh, inside and up today, not just an inside and up, but an inside and up that was able to negate the high from 2 trading sessions ago. That's as bullish as you can get. That means that anyone that sold the IWM on Friday, and that's a big volume day on Friday, they're wrong. If it's a short, they're out of the money, they're getting squeezed. And if they sold their longs, they made a mistake and they might have to chase back in. This IWM is full on bullish. And also, the thing that was most notable to me initially on the bounce actually wasn't just the strength in the IWM, it was the strength in the RSP. Remember seeing the spies were still down 1% and the RSP was down 0.2% and looked like it was going to go green. And then that happened. And this RSP, while it has not negated Friday, is without a doubt giving us the inside and up, and it looks ready to do so. So we'll see. If I had to say, think it's still a little bit inconclusive and we could go in either direction, but it looks like the Bulls are winning this battle. Especially when you look at the RSP, when you look at the IWM, and honestly, when you see that retail is just showing um, no signs at all of slowing down. And again, how you can tell is that they're not puking out anything from the meme stocks, which we can take a look at real quick. I got Bill giving me the IWM leaders and laggards. Beyond was the worst one. Yeah, so you had a few of these are kind of memey ones here. Let me look at the daily charts in some of these. So you got ATHs. That's just a huge gapper. CRML. CRML. This is one of the crazy meme stocks. So Critical Metals Corp up 30% on the day. That's a big one. NVTS, we know that's another one. RCKT, I don't know this one. I don't know what this one is, but this thing woke up in a nice big way. I want to look at the first handful of these. Rocket Pharmaceuticals. ABAT, I recognize that name. Look at this ABAT. Um, NPWR. Okay, it's like a day one for whatever this NPWR is. BKKT, definitely recognize that name. That's been a crazy one recently, but it's also kind of like a day one, maybe day two. INDI, wow. NXT, OUST. So a few of these are day ones, but a few of these are also just these meme stocks that are going. Hut is on the list here, a little bit lower down, but Hut got that mention from whatever that guy's name is, the open guy. So yeah, it kind of seems like it's the meme names in and of themselves that are, continuing to really, really. I didn't want to mention his name on purpose, Bill. I remembered his name. I didn't want to give him the clout. I got no respect. The second I saw that he was standing in front of Drake's house, I was like, I got no respect for this guy. Absolutely zero. Absolutely zero respect for this guy. Like at least be a man and go stand in front of 50 Cent's house. See what happens. Drake is, Drake doesn't even make good music. Um anyway, uh so IWM looks like full on bull mode. And again, when you look at I've been a hater on Drake's from since way before it was cool. Just to throw it out there. Go check out Drake. That's always kind of echoed my feelings about it. You can see the video on YouTube. Um, so anyway, yeah, I mean, you could tell that retail just continues to buy this market up, and they're just buying calls and record volume. We just saw that stat this morning. Record retail calls continue to go off. Somebody told me, and I have no evidence to back this up, but the person who told me this is a really good trader and was pretty knowledgeable. That a lot of the retail bid, there's a huge retail bid that's been coming out of Korea, that there's a big trading, I don't know, everybody's getting into trading. It's like the big hot thing right now in South Korea, and they're all opening stocks that opening accounts that enable them to trade U.S. stocks, and that's actually a lot of where this additional retail bid volume is coming in. I don't know how true that is or not. I don't know if that matters or not, but that is some hearsay that I was told by a generally pretty knowledgeable guy. So just a crazy nonstop retail bid, and again, you can just see that when you look at these meme stocks. When you look at quantum, when you look at the rare earth stocks, I mean, it's just ridiculous in my opinion. RGTI only up 2.25%, but that's after yesterday's move, and it's the turnaround intraday from some of these names that was so incredible. I mean, they ripped this RGTI. It almost looked like it could have been done from 55 down to 50 just to rip it back up to 58. And QBTS was a really big one today again. Big day two from QBTS up 7.5%. Same deal. They sold it in the beginning of the day just to absolutely rip this thing to new highs. Ion Q was a little bit weaker today, but then you've got these rare earth names that are just obviously rocking and rolling, and it makes sense a little bit because that's where the headlines are coming from on the China trade. Um, and you look at like MP, and MP I think is actually a decent company. And then you had the NVA headline this morning that they spoke to the Trump administration. So NVA is up 100% um, just on a mention of the Trump administration, right? Because now the U.S. government apparently takes stakes in stocks, and you don't want to be on the other side. That's what previously had lifted up USAR. I almost wonder if this USAR was a little bit weaker today because the administration spoke to another rare earth company as well. I haven't done research on most of these names. You also have NB that's continuing, NAK that is continuing. UUUU is the one that I've done research on, and Quad U here is ripping after hours, so that's fun. Uh, Give me a second, actually. I need to hit the bid. Um, this Quad U, they did $78 million in revenue last year, 2024. $78 million in revenue last year. The market cap is somewhere around 6 billion plus, I think, at $27. I get it. I think that all these rare earth stocks, if they're US based, should be up for obvious reasons. We need more US producers of rare earths. But you're talking about a stock that did $78 million in revenue last year and is now worth $6 billion. And at the end of the day, it is still just a mining company, right? It's not necessarily like a really high margin business to just dig in the earth and pull out some rocks. But the stock has gone from 550 in July to 27 now. Or just if you want to just look at the recent run of the month of October, which we're only 14 days, and it's October 14th. This thing's gone from $15 to $27. This is nonsensical as far as I'm concerned. Um, but meme stocks will be meme stocks, and I completely agree with what Marko Klanovic said after the close, even though he's clearly stating the obvious. And I'll just repeat it: RGTI and OKLO, another one here, $180 stock. It's got like I don't think even a viable product yet. But OKLO, it's owned by, it's got partial ownership, I think, or an involvement with the guy from OpenAI, whose name I can never remember for whatever reason. But Klonovich said RGTI and OKLO are the most bizarre stocks I ever saw, and a bunch similar in these two themes. So all the other ones. Most will go to zero after the rally, but timing of that is uncertain. And that's the big part, right? Is the timing of it all, because the market can stay irrational longer than you can remain solvent. What's just incredible is you can see the whole market get hit and these names don't get hit. Uh, and they're not low floaters. This isn't like QMMM, which is still halted. These things have big floats. So usually those big floaters, they can't really sustain that parabolic move for too long, just because the amount of volume needed to continue to do that is incredible. I saw yesterday that RGTI created more dollar volume than Apple, Microsoft, Meta, not all of them combined, but all of them individually. Pretty much all of them except like Tesla and Nvidia, which I think are in like a realm of their own in terms of the dollar volume that goes off in those stocks every day. But RGTI traded more dollar volume yesterday than most of the Mag 7 stocks. Most of the multi-trillion dollar companies that exist, there's more dollar volume going off in RGTI yesterday. And I'll be honest, they don't really look like they're done. I agree with what Josh said into the close, saying I would never in 100 million years or whatever buy an RGTI at this price. But circling back to what Planovich just said, it's about the timing, you know. And yesterday, this is what he was saying yesterday. Yesterday was technically a day one. Today is kind of a day two. So tomorrow is maybe the day three. Like tomorrow is when typically I would start to get interested in this thing, right? So I think that for tomorrow in an RGTI or a QBTS or in some of these rare earths like Quad U here. I think that tomorrow is the day where we can potentially begin to look for like more of a serious RDR upside failure capitulation. I mean, look at the volume on this Quad U today. 60 million shares went off. What is the float? Let me remind myself what the float is. Trying to look it up on my other screen, but I'm running too much stuff, so it's loading really slowly. I think it's like a couple 100 million share float, if I just remember correctly. But whatever, I'm not getting the information to pop up for me right now. So just math, 225 million. Thanks, TT. It's kind of what I thought. So yeah, the bottom line is when you look at the IWM, when you look at the meme stocks, you know that retail hasn't been done. And also a big part of this is that you can use these 2x and 3x levered ETFs and you can buy options, and options have never been traded in the way that they've been traded until now. And that creates these massive gamma squeezes. If you're buying that leveraged ETF, you're buying those weekly call options in these names, that just continues to just feed on itself and feed on itself, and that forces everybody else to buy the stock then as well, and that forces the shorts to get squeezed and everything else. So that's where we're at. It can't last forever, but it can continue. And the only other thing I would say, and I'll turn it over to you guys for questions, because I said it once, I think, into the VTF, is that this stuff can't last forever. It really can't. And I feel like at a certain point, I've seen this happen in the past, when the Wall Street bets people, the retail people start buying everything, that hits the point where they can't buy anything. And I remember seeing that happen. I think there were three major like spikes in the 2020 2021 bubble before the whole thing collapsed on itself. And every time when we would get near the top, and this is in some ways, I mean, in some ways, what undid GameStop and AMC and BlackBerry and the other couple was secondary offerings, particularly from AMC, that killed the momentum in that stock when that happened. And it's interesting to see that secondary offerings for meme stocks this time around have not killed the stocks at all. They've been getting completely bought up. But I remember in that period of time, and I feel like I'm starting to see that again here, when all the Wall Street bets people start to feel like they missed. I can't buy Quad U because I missed it. I can't buy RGTI because I missed it. And they start pumping like 25 other stocks. Eventually, when they start to pump everything, then they can't pump anything because they spread themselves out too thin. And then that actually becomes the end of the move. And I think you can see that a little bit in some of the call buying data. And I don't have the chart to be able to share with you guys, but I did see a chart at some point in the last couple of days that showed the call buying in these types of stocks that there's a huge peak that's actually still moving higher, but it's hitting into the zone of highs of the three peaks that I'm referencing that we saw in late 2020, early 2021. So the bottom line is, I think we're close on these names, but the timing is the hard part. Close doesn't mean necessarily here. It means it could be to tomorrow. It could be the day after tomorrow. It could be next week. I can't really be sure. It's not impossible to see these crazy meme stocks give us a few more, 20% plus up days before they fall on the weight of themselves. But I think that based on what I'm seeing anecdotally and from an evidence perspective with the call buying amounts that we're starting to get close with some of these. And I don't really think that what we're looking at can be sustained for too much longer. So that's all that I got. Happy to turn it over to you guys. Um, yeah, SPI to the offering. Dennis saying, is this bid really just retail though? How could we know? Well, we know through the flow of funds data, so I'm sure it's not 100% retail. I'm sure that there's some very sophisticated, quants out there and algos out there that are measuring the flow that's coming in from retail and adding to it that are making it even bigger. And those are probably some of the biggest, smartest players that are out there, and they'll probably be the ones who will actually be the real rug pullers at the end of the day. They're probably the ones that are, helping push retail up, and then all of a sudden they end it when they pull their bid. And that, the other thing that you really want to pay attention to, I think, with some of these um, crazy stocks is if we can ever see some more serious put flow sort of coming in, which we really haven't seen that yet. You know, a piece here or there, but I mean like more consistently on size. And that a lot of times I think is the end of the smart money, the smart quant money that's like following this. But yeah, I mean it's in the data. Retail in September had like its largest buying month ever, and that's actually usually they usually take a break in September. October it's continued. We just saw all this data that last week was like one of the biggest weeks of retail buying ever, biggest week of call buying ever. So yeah, it's them, and when they're doing it in leveraged products, it has a knockoff effect of pushing things higher in a way that it can't happen if they're just buying the stock. If you're buying calls, the market maker on the other side of those calls has to buy the underlying. That is what a gamma squeeze is. So when there is just constant call buying going off and anything that's moving higher parabolically, it's probably not ready to stop. And that's something you got to pay attention to. Um, the question answered on Korea. I heard that as well. And there is a Korea Quantum ETF that supposedly owns 30% of RGTI and Co. That's the first I heard about that part. Apollo has made an offer to buy Papa John's Pizza, PZZA, up 24%. From Varun, what if we have a GameStop type squeeze in all of these crappy companies tomorrow? Maybe what if we do? I think that there's too many names running at once to get something like GameStop, and you don't have the short floats there. Quad U is 13% short float. GME was 130% short float. So I don't think that you can get that, honestly. And what we have is crazy enough. Um, from Dennis, in a market like this, everyone thinks they can get out before everyone else. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, it's 100% true. And again, I was talking to my buddy, the person who originally told me about Korea, who's also a very, very good trader. I'm trying to find in my messages here his quote because I thought it was very perfect. Here it is. He said, so many people are waiting to short these names, and when they finally turn, the momentum will be unstoppable. All the longs who didn't sell will sell. All the dip buyers will get run over. And he's 100% correct. Also, it's similar but different, maybe more of a execution mechanism, but similar to different of what Klonovich is saying. The stuff is gonna run out at some point. The timing of it, your guess is as good as mine. But when it happens, it'll happen, and it'll happen violently. And by the way, that was how we knew that Friday when I look at RGTI, the retail wasn't done because it's exactly like I said in yesterday's afternoon meeting. The sell just wasn't big enough, especially compared to what the market did. This RGTI should have functioned through the previous highs, went to 49, and sold down to the 30s, mid 30s even, all in one trading session. That's when you know. That's when you know that it's done. Um, they try to buy that dip, the new low comes in, you get a small bounce, the new low comes in, the new low comes in, and the stock ends up down 25% on the day with there doesn't even necessarily need to be news. News would potentially help, but there doesn't even necessarily need to be any news in order for that to happen. And we're just not there yet. I'm sure they'll make another new leverage product of something tomorrow. Let me log into the YouTube and see what those folks are talking about. Sometimes you got to get riggedy wrecked. From Joel, why do you long snap so much? Do you know how it trades super well, or you actually believe in it? I don't believe in it. I'm just up so much money in it. I've been there's some previous afternoon meetings that you can find, but Snap has been in a range since the beginning of 2022, more or less, and I have been creating that range. Um, that entire time, and I've traded it so well that like if the stock went to $1, my break even price in Snap is probably $1. So I don't believe in it at all, to be honest. I hate the CEO. I think the CEO is terrible. I don't really like the product. I don't think they monetize it well. I think it's also partially the CEO's fault. I think the stock trades like crap. But I've been working a range in this thing for 4 years, and my cost basis on it as a result is basically $1. So you know, and I've actually still considered recently just dumping this thing and just taking the capital and moving it somewhere else, but overall, I've made so much money in this that there's been no point in me not getting out. But no, I don't believe in it at all. From Cyril, the IWM didn't touch the 5 minute 20 EMA almost the whole day, which is very rare. I was wondering who is buying with no pullbacks. Me too. Me too. I was also, I think I messaged Pat on the side at one point today, and I was like, I don't know who the F is buying this market like this anymore. I just don't know. Like, I thought the retail had the potential, based on what we read, to overwhelm the systematic selling, but them having a nonstop bid from $240 to 249.50, uh mind blowing, mind blowing. 100, I'm 100% of the same thought process as you. But again, a lot of those meme stocks are IWM names. So there you go. And that's what retail is, just buying calls in and buying leverage ETFs in. Would you say that we're not out of the woods until the SPY clears all-time highs? No, I don't think that on the from the bearish bullish thought process, we're not out of the woods. We have to negate the negative Maribozu, which basically brings you to all-time highs. Otherwise, the penalty box candle is still intact, or at least show me like a really solid move above the inside day high, really solid move tomorrow above 665, a close at 669, 670. And I'll be like, all right, we got the inside and up. We're probably going after all time highs. We're probably out of the woods for the Bulls. Joel's glad I'm a Drake hater. I also won Mr. Trees' heart. Yeah, definitely check out DMX on Drake if you've never seen that one before. It's good. Don't you love it when RGTI gets a 5 million quantum computer sold and then adds billions of it to its market cap? Yeah. Uh, yeah, RGTI, they're, you know, flight to quality. Flight to quality. Soybeans look good. I don't even know what I could type up to look at soybeans. There's probably an ETF for it. Ethereum fuels the next crypto leg. Okay, I'm not a believer, but if you're long, I wish you luck. Back over to the YouTube. Yeah. Steamboat Willie here reminding me that we had a bunch of AI headlines this morning. Let's take a quick look at how those traded. AMD on the news with Oracle, not great. Honestly, they ripped AMD in the beginning of the day. It still closed positive, but not great. Um, Oracle also not great, but not broken. Not great, but not broken. ABGO today, not great. The interesting one in a lot of ways is the NVIDIA weakness. That one thing that I keep saying is like we keep seeing the AMD deals get done, and you would think that that increased competition hurts NVIDIA because now AMD is not the only game in town. But when I think it was Oracle first did the deal with AMD, uh, or no, that was today's. I can't even remember. Oh, OpenAI with AMD. I thought that that should have been a big negative for Nvidia, and Nvidia finished the day down 0.5%. Today, we actually saw, I think this almost acted as a net negative, where AMD didn't, and this was actually very notable. So I'm glad you brought this back up for us, Steamboat Willie. Um, AMD didn't go up enough today for that headline, and it negatively impacted Nvidia. And I said it yesterday when I was on with Greta, and I said it in the afternoon meeting yesterday as well. Show me, because in this market right now, you got the AI economy. The AI economy, I think, is holding up the stock market and it's creating a wealth effect that's helping the general economy. But the general economy itself is actually not doing well. And then, separately to that, you've got the meme mania. Tell me that we can lose the AI trade. Tell me that we lose the AI trade because the next deal that happens is not met with a huge boost higher. And AMD finished green today. AMD got a boost higher, but today's deal actually seems like it's the first one that maybe was a net negative. I'm looking at Nvidia down 4%, and it's off of lows, and AMD up 1.25%. That's a net negative. Is that the beginning of something? Very notable. And the Q relative weakness today, very notable. So let's keep a really close eye on that. If the meme stuff collapses on itself at the same time as you begin to lose the AI trade, it could become really significant. And then we go into earnings and we'll see what the earnings reports look like, and obviously the reaction to those earnings reports. Yeah, ASML's tomorrow morning, so that'll be an important one. Um, it's kind of our warm up. Boeing, I got no opinion for you on Boeing. Boeing should be higher and it's not. So to me, that doesn't look good. COOT ripping from Trump news. What's the news? They do cooking oil, Australian oil seeds. Oh my gosh. This market is insane. This market's insane, up 215%. Uh, I find that RGTI, it's weird that it's not hard to borrow. I mean, RGTI has a massive, massive float, so that's probably why. All right, gang. Looks like I got through everything in the YouTube and in the VTF. So I'll wrap it up there. 5 o'clock. Quite the day today. I'm expecting more excitement tomorrow. Let's see how we got. I'm ending the meeting, but I thought we were actually going to have a really big gap up this morning, and it looked like we were going to have a big gap up last night. I saw the futures up like 0.3, 0.4%, something like that. And then the news is what took us all the way down. That went off in the middle of the night. So I guess that buying that started to buy us up last night just happened all day today. Can it continue tomorrow? Are we going to get a big gap up tomorrow? Do we get another headline tonight? We'll see. Have a good night, everybody.